Well, slap me thrice and send me to my moment. We are back with day number 3 of Contenders trials for the EU division. I'm Big Phil, and alongside me, all the way from the other side of the ocean, it is the wonderful LaFon. Welcome to the EU. What have we got to look forward today, and how's it going? In any order you feel like.
Any order I feel like. Well, I mean, it's a hot day, so what better way to celebrate than some fantastic Overwatch? And I think right off the top, Dreadlords versus HSL Esports. Phil, this is going to be a really interesting one because our community couldn't quite put their finger on the pulse with who they wanted to win. So hotly contested, I think, is probably the fairest way to describe this match. And starting off with HSL, they have a lot to prove, I think, early on.
They do, you know, some big changes in the off-season in terms of their roster, a couple of new faces. One that stands out to me particularly is Snubbit, the flex support player coming in previously of a whole host of Finnish teams, Sauna Gaming, Basta, Nudiki. I think he's been on probably more teams than anybody else. In this match we've got coming up, he's been moving around a lot. But HSL, it feels to me like they didn't quite live up to some of the hype we've seen from them in previous seasons in the last season of Contenders, which is why they're back down in trials now. But again, still a lot for them to prove. They're currently 1-0, I think, or potentially just one after one day of play. So they've got a lot to prove still.
Yeah, and I mean, this is a very important match for a couple of reasons. One, both teams are 0-1 in our setup here, right? So they are going head-to-head to figure out who's going to get that first victory. And that first victory is very important. You don't want to go down 0-2 this early in the bracket because that puts you up against some pretty tough opposition towards the end of trials, right? So you don't want to be in a losing position heading. You don't want your own fate to be not in your hands. That is a tough position to be if you're a team. So for HSL, as you say, a lot here that they kind of need to prove. I think especially out of the gates on that first map on control. Tempo, I think, is going to be the most important thing here for HSL, and can they play at a high tempo efficiently without making too many mistakes? But on the other side of things, we do have Dreadlords, because if what goes for HSL, I think we could say goes just about as much for Dreadlords themselves.
Easily. Dreadlords, I had a chance to check in on their game from yesterday. They were looking a little bit rocky. They were trying some things outside of this double shield Baptiste brig setup that we've been seeing, and they seem to be struggling to make it work. Whether with a day of play already under their belts, they may be able to get some of those technicalities to click together a little better and have a better showing today. Obviously remains to be seen, but as you say, LaFon, in exactly the same position for these guys, they don't want that 0-2 scoreline because it makes the rest of the bracket so much harder.
And I want to touch on something you kind of mentioned, the double shield meta that we've kind of seen evolve throughout Open Division Contenders trials and Overwatch League itself. You know, across the board, double shield has kind of come to the forefront. Genji, I think, also making a huge resurgence with his recent buff. So a couple of things there to keep an eye out on. Will we see sort of the standard style that is expected, so namely the double shield with the DPS of the Genji Ashe usually, or will there be a little bit more variety? Starting off in Control, I would not be surprised to see some flexibility, some flavor due to the aggressive nature and chaotic aspect of Control, Phil, but at least initially, I think it really does come down to, can one team set the other on edge, right? Can they play aggressively and force mistakes? Because I think that's going to be a real difference maker early on.
And looking like aggression is going to be the name of the game here, because we have not got the double shield currently locked in. We've got Rhinoceros on one side and kind of a hard dive coming out from Dreadlords with the TP out of the gate for HSL, can get back over on to Reaper. So a brawl coming in for HSL.
It is going to be, you know, that first look. Can the Reinhardt get in position? Can they get the Reaper to start brawling in play? Sir Gibson here going to have to become, you know, look for that initial punch through. And again, HSL trying to flank, trying to find that early positioning, but a ton of spam damage coming in from Dreadlords at the moment.
So it's still being kind of hesitant here, being penned in both sides by both the Tracer and Farah out for Fein, or of course from Cloud. So it's going to be difficult to really pin anybody down with this Reaper. Had a beat there for a second on Wrecking Ball, obviously a very difficult target to track down, but with a blast of the shotgun, that's Fein taken out of fight on high ground now. Haven't seen the Razium come through Cloud. I believe the rest of HSL can't through first flip over to HSL.
This is a little bit greedy from Dreadlords. They have the spam damage. What they needed to do was play around that advantage. Burn the resources from the defense, burn the resources from HSL. HSL, though, in very good condition now. There isn't a ton of ultimates on the board. We're looking at the Pulse Bomb here as being the key difference maker. A pickoff needs to happen.
HSL Going to be taken out straight out, then caught by the spawn. That's the opener. Feynor closing in on the barrage. Has it up on the high ground, ready to go in as when needed. Might not need it as EM is taken out of fight. Looks like they're going to be able to do the rest of this in the neutral on the back pulse bomb.
And that's what they needed to do in the first fight, and I'm glad it didn't take them that much longer to really reset. They built up to the resources, able to get that key pick off as we highlighted at the beginning, and then start to Zerg in, taking down one by one. The tanks fall, then the DPS are a lot more vulnerable. Again, not a ton of range here with the DPS that HSL are running, so you're going to outrange them eventually. It's all about that patience. Now, though, it's going to be a switch coming in from Kage. So with that being on the board, the Fire is going to have to be a little bit less aggressive. I would expect the barrage into the nano boost here early to prevent the re-engage from the tanks on the point.
In position, nano boost over top, sound barrier out early from Barrett. Will find Kage 1 for 2 ultimates, maybe not the best value in the world here for Dreadlords. Still, they've stimulated the approach and they still control point, and they can afford to just stuff up these chokes.
Now for Dreadlords, for HSL, what is kind of the game plan here? And it's really going to be all about getting in position to get the tanks on the point, using the Mei to sort of section out the dive, and then holding on point. And there's the start. The point is being controlled initially by Dreadlords.
Yeah, point presence out, but once again, Response takes them dead straight out of the fight. And we've already got committed HSL, and they've thrown in the coalescence. It's a quick one. They're going to go back for that next fight. They need to wait for that to come back ready for the next one. It's going to flip back over here for Dreadlords, and they've got themselves ready for the next one.
Wholesale swaps coming through actually from HSL as well. They're going to go, they're dropping the Earth Shatter actually. I think they're going to keep the Graviton Surge because of how you can land it on targets and just get a confirmed kill. So I expect them to go for that hard Graviton Surge on one target, to burn that down, and then switch over. But Pure Irish can defend with self-destruct should too many people get caught in the grab.
Arco with a stealth play there. Oh my lord. Not to get round into the line of fire. Here's the Nanoboost again. Find the barrage in up top. Gets the third a much more successful execution. Just the hunt down on Sir Gibson to go. We'll see a little bit of a contest storming out now here from Lucio, but that is 99 to 37 and 1 point on the board for Dreadlords.
Tough place to be if you are HSL, right? That Graviton Surge needed to find more value. You really needed to catch 2 squishies. I think even burning on the Pharah Mercy would not have been a bad idea if you could focus them down, because unable to get in, you're just taking spam damage from all angles. And again, I said this at the top, the Dreadlords played that perfectly after that first fight. The first fight, they didn't really play to their strengths, but thereafter, it was all Dreadlords that spam so key at keeping this DPS, this sort of dive composition in power. And that was the first round going handily, I think, to Dreadlords. HSL, an evolution is going to be required here in round number 2. And off the top, we're already seeing wholesale. It's just a completely different attempt. All about that control, the crowd control, the flashbang and slowdown from the Mei. And Phil, right away into the second map of Oasis Gardens are away.
Additional pressure from the Diva coming in as well means that it's going to be a lot harder for Feynor to make anything happen here, but high ground control already given over to them means that it's going to be a difficult task here for HSL to really push in when all the space control that Dreadlords have.
They need to babysit Kage into position. The McCree needs to find value here. Oh, so weak though.
That's really unfortunate. Arca able to blast through already halfway to that pulse bomb ready to go. I'm going to see that Task is getting frozen up and Source taken out of this as well. This is really unfortunate. You can't afford to be running that Wrecking Ball into a Mei like that. First point flip coming over to HSL. Beautiful read on what the Dreadlords were running.
Very risky play there from Kage, and really, it took them a long time. It took HSL a long time to get into position. They were forced to burn the Immortality field, but unfortunately for Dreadlords, they were unable to take advantage of that. And so once that McCree gets into position, once the Mei is able to slow down the dive, it's so much harder to find value. On the re-entry, the barrage is available, but this is a lot tougher for Feynor to land here.
Yeah, not going to have the same amount of peace of mind, and certainly not going to have that Nano Boost online ready to go. He will get dived, but a lot of damage coming back out on the defense. There's the barrage with the pulse bomb layered in. 2 for the pulse bomb, 2 structures for the barrage, and a clean fight win for Dreadlords.
Gotta say, Vendetta losing track of the mark just a little bit. The barrage was online, they knew that, and so you're not going to get a ton of value just by flying at the fire and trying to force a kill out. You don't have the Discord Orb, you can't burn it down unless you're getting focus fire, and that just didn't come through. Now for HSL, the retake, on the retake, you're walking into the minefield and a nano boost. all about execution again. If you can get Pharah out of the air, if you can get a vanilla kill here, I think then you're in good position. But for HSL, it's all going to land on getting that Pharah in the air.
Gonna start things off with the high noon, gets booted back up into the air and taken out by Feanor. So Kage throws that in for no value at all. We see the support was coming in from the Dreadlords as well. Self-destruct thrown in by Vendetta, can't find any of its marks, and in the meantime it is kills racking up here for the Dreadlords. Task finds ADM and Feanor, unsurpassed mastery of the sky here, closing in on a barrage for this next incoming fight.
Dreadlords are playing all around, making sure that Feanor could get into position and get, value with the Pharah. You saw Kage had to walk all the way in, and despite full Matrix, was still taken out. We're going to see switches again. Sir Gibson, the only one going to be staying the same because he has to use this Blizzard. A tough ask, though, with the high mobility characters that are on Dreadlords, and unless you're going to get an even trade in a kill, like a Tracer-on-Tracer battle, it's looking pretty tough here for HSL.
So, of course, Arca already much closer to having a pulse bomb than Kage, having just swapped already. And, of course, coming in, got to watch out for the rain, and you've got to watch out for that concussive blast with a beautiful kill, followed up by Task getting one of their own, and the barrage for good measure. Barros is going to find one as part of that, but hey, punished as he tries to leave the point. This is getting dangerously close to last fight territory here for Dreadlords.
Really is, and you don't have any resources. You have the sound barrier and the Blizzard, and while that may in other metas have been a big difference maker, here I don't think it's going to be as effective. You need to land it on those targets, but they're all mobile, so they're all likely to get out. And the whole time, no, that's it. You're down at a disadvantage.
We will have the sound barrier. It's going to have to be used aggressively to allow them to buy the space on the points. So Gibson still holding on to that Blizzard, but the minefield now out as well. Now, the Blizzard may nullify some of these mines, but they've not really got the point presence here. They don't have the numbers, and as Pure Irish pulls the pin on the self-destruct and Barrett goes down, it's going to be down to these last few stall picks from HSL to try and grind out some cap progress on the point here. As we see Sir Gibson knocked down, the pulse bomb insufficient to take, just enough to take Task out of the fight. HSL is still keeping this going, Lafon, but I think they're on a hiding to nothing with this one.
No, this is with Kage going down. That was the one carry who's doing all the work in this fight, and Dreadlords look to start building up control. Phil, this is not looking good at all for HSL.
No, they are still in this. We've got Sir Gibson picking back over onto the Sombra to try and keep this going, but the damage is just too consistent. It's too powerful. Feanor is not being contested anywhere near enough to give them a chance in this fight. We'll see the minefield come out, but one more time, too little, too late. Dreadlords going to be coming out of that with a 2-0.
A close fight. Kage doing his absolute best there at the very end, trying to drag them back, kicking and screaming into the map, but unfortunately just not close enough. The spam of the Pharah proved to be too effective at zoning out the Tracer at the end. And Phil, just a real tough thing there for HSL. Straight up, their composition was not particularly effective at dealing with the Pharah combination. And it meant, as a result, that Dreadlord just kept the point in their favor and never gave it up.
So, Lafon, you and I were talking a little bit before today's games about whether or not we'd had a chance to see any of these guys play recently. And I did watch Dreadlord's game from yesterday, and I think I mentioned on broadcast as we started that they were looking a little bit shaky. They were trying a bunch of different things. None of them quite seemed to work. And this is very nearly one of the things that were running yesterday. And the one big adaptation they've made is they've taken Feanor off of the Sombra and putting back onto what for Feanor is a massive comfort pick back on the Pharah, and boy, is it working out for them.
It really is, and I think credit to Dreadlords for isolating out a weakness that HSL's composition really couldn't deal with at the beginning. They didn't have the range to sort of shut down the Pharah, and once that range did come into play, at that point it was too late. Dreadlords had full control. So Feanor on the Pharah, I fully agree with you. I think that was a smart pick here, and one that ended up paying massively out for them. And I think here for HSL heading into map number 2, something you're gonna have to kind of work around is, do you have an answer for that aggression? Because it felt like at no point did Dreadlords really feel overly pressured to do anything. They were working at their own tempo, playing at their own, comfortable being in that driver's seat. HSL needs to, I think, catch up to speed with what Dreadlords are kind of bringing to the table.
It does feel to me a little bit like HSL, the only time they really took the initiative and took the point was where there had been missteps in the way that Dreadlords were playing, particularly on the first point of Oasis. That one sticks out to me of Feanor in particular maybe not having the right position, not taking the right angles to get the damage in. And so HSL, as well as maybe not having the compositional answers, currently just feeding off mistakes of the other team, and that's not the sort of situation you can find yourself in that gets you that W. In the end, we've really got to see these guys step up, and I kind of want to see a little more from Kage here, because, you know, here's the classic counter to your Fire and Mercy comp is run a decent hit scan, and I don't think Kage's really had the opportunity to do that yet.
In all fairness to Kage, and I don't think that Dreadlords are particularly playing extremely, mistake-free. Like, they are definitely places where you can take advantage of some of the mistakes that Dreadlords are making. I think the one thing, though, on the point that you made about Kage is that they're not able to engage without forcing every single cooldown when he's on that hit scan, right? The Immortality field, full matrix, just basically staying in position. So their rotations are a little slow, and Kage, as a result, is forced, once you're actually in combat, to not really have those resources that he needs to take those fights. Again, it's not a 1v1. It's not a McCree versus a Pharah. That's not the actual effect. It's McCree's team versus Pharah's team, and in this case, it's just much less resource had to be committed to Feanor on the Pharah than Kage on the McCree, and I think that's a key difference. HSL needs to get Kage into a position where he can succeed. We saw once he got on the Tracer and was able to get into those backlines, into those positions, he was able to do a ton of work. So I think it really does come down to, can HSL bring Kage alongside them so they're working as a unit, as a squad, to combat the strategy that Dreadlords are bringing. I think that's going to be the key difference in map number 2.
And I wonder, Lafon, if maybe what they need to be looking at is just maybe sticking with what is currently meta at the minute. We didn't see them running that double shield particularly. We didn't see Kage picking up the Ash, which we know to be a really strong pick at the minute. So maybe this round we're going to see them swap to that, because it sort of forces people to play together in that way, in such a way that enables the individual members to be in that big cohesive unit.
I would fully agree with that. I think the problem with double shield, though, on map number 1 specifically, is I think the composition that Dreadlords were bringing was not would have worked around Dreadlords, right? So it's a tough place to be there if you are HSL. You can't really get into position to kind of do much of anything there. So I think double shield on map number 2 may be the answer, but for map number 1, I can understand why they elected to stay away from it.
And it does look like that's what we're getting out here on the defense from HSL. The Orisa Sigma double shield composition. And obviously, always a little bit premature to talk about what's currently in spawn for the offensive side. But given the success they had on that first map, would not surprise me to see this coming out for Dreadlords.
No, not at all. I think you can definitely run this, especially with how well it worked on map number 1. If you found success with it, there's no reason not to try it if you think you can get value out of it on a second map type. I think it's going to be a little bit more difficult here to get the Pharah into position against the Ash, but also the double shield. Feanor there is exactly going to switch, as they're going to, I don't think the Pharah would have found a ton of value, so Somber makes sense to me. A full dive comp here from Dreadlords. Pressuring out Vendetta and Kage is going to be the answer here. If you can get them to kind of give up positioning, you will find a lot more success. But all of this is going to be at the cost of Sir Gibson getting into the backline, doing damage to the Genji, and starting to build up that Dragon Blade.
That's right. This is a really interesting position we've got for HSL on the defense. They've opted to hold not even on top of Big O's. I think you can just catch through the silhouettes there. They're actually holed up on this bit of ramp on the backside of this first turn. So they're not offering any cart pressure.
No, not only that being said, though, you can't dive this. There's nowhere to dive to come in at a flank. So this is a really, once the cart gets underneath it, HSL are in, they're doing a pretty good job of holding it. This is going to be a soft dive as it needs to get into position to get a fight going. And HSL, that shield may come back to haunt them, though, as they need it up on the high ground.
May well do. Feanor not doing too bad at generating EMP charge, 33% and climbing here. We'll need to do a little more work to get that in. In comes the dive, but a beautiful reaction with the coach gun knocks Task out of position, so the dive isn't able to complete, and they're going to find themselves hauled back up under Big O's. Attack will come through from Feanor as he starts to crank this up a little bit further, and we've got the Coalescence out from Source. It's a big source of pressure. It can burn down things like Snappy's Immortality field and buy enough confusion and space for Arca to get Barrett. That's now down, and it's back up to Healsville for Source, but this is a big advantage, having taken the Brigitte out of the fight. Now, that's going to get the equalizer there. Feynor taken out most of the way towards having that EMP, though. And, of course, the respawn for Sombra on the offense here, significantly faster. But now we're over to Arca with a pulse bomb into the back. Finds Sir Gibson. The pistols take Vendetta out of the fight. Melee onto Kage. And it is 100% the Arca show here, as we see Dreadlords looking to push this to the end of point A.
A little bit greedy, a little bit panicked from HSL, I think, in that play. They did not need to be that aggressive on the entry. They walk into a coalescence, and that means that they're just going to, they don't have the sustain required to go through. That being said, it was a good read from Dreadlords to come in, realize that they didn't need to press aggressively after the dive failed, waited for HSL to come in, and that's what gave them the opening. Heading into fight number 2, though, this is actually only the second fight, despite the second point being activated. HSL here have some tools to work with. They have the Gravitic Flux, they have the Supercharge, they have the Dragon Blade. What I'm curious is, can they land those before the Sombra EMP goes off?
Well, we are going to see the Supercharger come out first, but he gets immediately taken offline, even as Sir Gibson procs that Dragon Blade into the back, looking to get one kill with that 5 second of Cloud down, but that's more than equalized by the self-destruct, and Arca with primary fire, Source to round things out with the Coalescence, takes Barrots out of it, and this push looks like it's going to keep right on going.
Yeah, with more kills coming through, that is going to be a reset here, and such an expensive fight to lose. Sir Gibson and Kage both making swaps throughout the last 2 fights. They're going to switch over to the Torb to kind of situate a crossfire here to make it difficult for the dive to enter. The really problematic thing here, though, is that you've got to go up against the EMP and the the Gravitic Flux here. Not a great ability when it gets shut down via a hack, so the EMP can even be used as a counter engage if the Gravitic Flux catches most people.
Yeah, this is really just a 1-for-1 trade. You don't mind if you don't get kills off the back of that EMP, as long as you take the Flux offline. We'll see Feynor on the high ground here, ready to TP in and pop it. Arca able to find 2 structures of the pulse bomb, not too much value. EMP comes out, it's a biggie, that's gonna hit 4. Kage, Sir Gibson, all hacked up. Kage just got that high noon online, but will have 0 chance at all to get that used. And a 3rd fight win sees Dreadlords secure point B.
I mean, that's been, what is it? 1 fight per point so far, 2 technically on second. This has been a really rough place to be if you're HSL. They haven't gotten into position even when they had resource advantage. It's going to be a couple of switches over as Feynor is going over to the Genji here, trying to build up towards the Dragon Blade of his own. Vendetta needs to get this Gravitic Flux off. You need to have value out of this if you want to stop the pain. That being said, this is probably the best place to play the double shield on this map here on 3rd.
And of course, nothing left to shut down the Gravitic Flux except for a kill, which is always difficult to do. But hey, they're not even going to get that chance because the supports are down. Source focuses down. Kage with the high noon still on board. We are going to see Sir Gibson trying to keep the card alive. ADM tags back in to keep this going. Will find Pure Irish while DMEG, but that card stopped for just a second.
Dreadlords are finding those moments where everything falls apart, and in the chaos, they're getting those final blows. Vendetta uses the Gravitic Flux in that fight, and it got nothing. They need an early pickoff if you are HSL. Dreadlords have all the advantage in terms of momentum.
Going to be looking for Kage finding something big with this high noon, but Dreadlords are not going to give them the opportunity. They're pushing right up to that in-camp position on the high ground. Arca with another pulse bomb. Not going to find too much that time. Did a lot of body damage, but no kills on the back of it thanks to the Immortality field. We also saw the Molten Core come out, and it found nothing. We're going to see the self-destruct in over the top, and it's massive, getting the 4K. Sound barrier out to round things out, and it's Vendetta left alone on the point trying to keep this going. He's not going to be able to stand up to the number of bodies on the point, and with the Dragon Blade over the top, this is going to be just over 2 minutes 20 seconds as we round into the end of point C for Dreadlords.
It's a last-ditch stall. It's all about how much time you take off the clock because you're not bringing this one back. The focus fire needs to be there, Phil, but for Dreadlords, it's looking very good.
Have the Gravitic Flux finally out from Vendetta, not able to find too much again. Too much damage, too many bodies on the point, too much HP for anybody to be able to find anything to do with. It's now down to Kage to duck and to dip and to dive around that point to keep it going long enough for Sir Gibson to come back in, but not going to be enough. 1 minute 54 on the clock as we round point C.
Such a quick game here from the attack. They just did not give any space to HSL to work. And as a result, Dreadlords looking very comfortable here after the first run. Again, to their defense, they just have to have, if they even have 2 fights per point, Dreadlords will be sitting at a very comfortable, very comfortable time bank. HSL need to go back to the drawing board and sort of relook their approach to how they're fighting these aggressive teams, because HSL, you know, they just haven't really been in these fights. They're losing fights that they are committing more to, and Dreadlords are being very efficient with their ult economy, are still finding a ton of value.
So it almost makes me wonder if the sort of thing that we're seeing from Dreadlords has been a lot of like high mobility dive, a lot of player characters that want to get in and out of the fight fairly quickly. Do we need to see HSL move over to something a little more CC focused? We saw, you know, a couple of attempts at this with the May and with the McCree a little bit, but maybe going all in on that sort of strategy might help them out here.
I don't necessarily think so, because I think one of the things that HSL, their composition was fine. They even in the fights where they were generating resources, they were fine. I think the problem comes down to a big problem that comes down to here is that HSL in a fight where they committed more resources got fewer kills. It's not about. I think the team comp at this point is not the problem. It's the execution in the middle of the team fight that HSL's kind of struggling with. And I think, you know, credit to Dreadlords. They're doing a great job of recognizing those moments where they can press the advantage and are taking it. But for HSL, the talent is there. We saw some great gameplay from Kage, from Sir Gibson in the DPS play. I think even in the tank and supports, there were definite moments where across the board HSL has shown that they can, you know, keep up. But in the chaotic team fights, they're just losing track of their marks, and that's putting them in a position, you know, down in this map that they really did not need to be in.
Lafon, can I take you all the way back to the first point of this map, where we saw HSL setting up really in quite an advanced position in terms of that first stretch, like on the final corner of that map. Do we think giving up all of that payload progress, all of the potential to generate ults for another fight on A, it feels to me like that has kind of robbed them of any chance of setting up a defensive momentum. Do we think maybe this was part of why we saw such a big problem for them here?
I mean, the idea is not necessarily poor, right? Like, I get what they were trying to accomplish. It doesn't. I get the thought process makes sense to me. It's a logical thought process. I think the problem is when you have the advantage, giving it up for free is not the play, and I think that's where things kind of went wrong for HSL. Again, the strategy is legitimate, right? You make sure to have a place where you're sort of supported by the map geometry, and that makes it difficult for a dive to engage on you, which, okay, I could totally see that. But then giving it up when you still have cart contest, when you still have high ground control, I think that's where things kind of fell apart. And you let Dreadlords back into the play. The Tracer finding so much value. The Pulse Bomb, we saw the stick on that first fight that just basically opened it all up. And I think that's where the issue lay, not necessarily in the decision making to get there.
I always like working with you, Lafon. I feel I learned so much more about the game with your analysis, so thank you for that. Guys, just to give you a little bit of an update, we're having to make a couple of adjustments behind the scenes here, so we're taking a little pause. Don't worry, the game itself is still paused, so you're not missing any of the action just yet. You just got to bear with us while we try and iron out some of the kinks. Now, Lafon, one of the other things we talked about before we started this matchup was Feanor yesterday was looking a little bit lost on the Sombra in particular. Very good when they brought out some of the other characteristic flex DPS picks, but he seems remarkably better on that pick today, and it seems almost surprising to have this level of step up in just one day. I think really big round of applause for Feanor for finding that extra drive there in one day.
I think credit to Arca as well, actually, who gives a ton of space to Feanor, because the Sombra player is not a carry. Well, I would say is rarely the carry player in sort of the middle of a team fight, right? You're not really expecting 5Ks coming out from the Sombra player. So I think for Feanor, now that he has a little bit more space to kind of execute on what the Sombra needs to do, generating EMP, finding those useful hacks, getting damage in the backline to make soften up targets. I think with Arca providing the space to the full pressure, Feanor's in a position where he can play his character to the way it needs to be played, not in a more ineffective way. So I think credit to the team and getting value out of the Sombra pick. I feel like if a Sombra is not getting value, the first question you have to ask is the team setting them up for success, right? And I think for Feanor, there's a little bit of there's a column A, column B answer to a bit of this to this answer, and I think the team is playing around it, and that's giving him the space he needs to play better, right? So there's it is, yes, he has improved massively since yesterday. I think there's also the team's all on the same page trying to get to a solution that involves the Sombra.
I always think it's really difficult to know, like, at what point you pull the plug on whether the Sombra is working or not, because, you know, if it's not been working but you're past that 50% mark on the EMP, like, it can feel really, really tempting just to stick with it. Guys, like, I'm most of the way towards that AMP and we win the team fight on that. What can you, like, what's the sign that you should swap early? When do you look at your pick and go, okay, guys, this one's dead, let's roll the next comp instead?
I mean, first of all, I have to call out the pun that you made there. Pull the plug for Sombra? Ugh.
Hey, you know, sometimes my punning is so good I don't even realize I've done it.
I'm so sorry, audience. That was pretty poor, Phil. I gotta call you out on that one. But no, to answer the question, the sunk cost fallacy is a huge deal when it comes to fast building ultimates, especially, you know, I think the EMP. But I think the one thing that that kind of answers that question, like when do you switch, is there a situation in this very next fight? Will I get to the resource in this next fight that's happening right now that will help us win the fight? If the answer is no, then you switch, because I don't think, unless you have enough time to plan for 2 fights from now, but in a situation where you're saying, okay, this is not working, we need to switch, by that point, you really don't have the time to make that call, like, okay, I'll have 2 fights. So I'd say, you know, even if you're at that 40-50% mark, if you cannot win, if you cannot generate it in this very next fight, then it is probably the time to switch that.
Guys, just to keep you updated, still working on ironing out this technical issue, but if you're at a loose end, if you're maybe a little bit sick of listening to myself and other fun talk, how could you be, frankly? Of course, we do have, courtesy of Monkey and the LA Gladiators, a competition running at the minute, so submit your favorite tier 2 related meme, be that image, be that joke, be that YouTube video. Post that on Twitter with the hashtag GLAD4T2 and put yourself in the running for some prizes.
And I have to say, there's been some fantastic additions to that hashtag already. I think my favorite, one of the good ones was the, you know, I'll plug you a little bit actually. The Ultimates roster one. That was a pretty,
oh yeah,
yeah, not bad.
I'm looking forward to that one. That's a roster that I didn't realize was the roster that it is. So that's going to be a fun reveal later if you're not familiar with the Ultimates but have been following Tier 2 for a little while. And thank you very much for the shout out there, LaFon. I believe we are only a handful of minutes away from being able to bring this game back to you.
Been a rather dynamic one, I think. Dynamic gameplay so far. Perhaps a generous way of putting it, but I credit to the evolution of Dreadlords this early on in the bracket, right? Because there's a lot of times in trials, and we've seen this in other regions, in other seasons, where you get to like the 4th game, and that's where you start improving. You're like, man, if we were only doing this 2 games ago, we would have had a chance at making Contenders proper, right? So that's always like that moment of, oh shucks, we could have done better. But I think for Dreadlords, that the fact that they're doing it this early on into the round robin, into the bracket of Contenders trials, speaks volumes for them as a team and sort of their hopes and of making it further into Contenders proper. Because like I said, you don't want to be in that position, you know, towards the end, you're down 0-3 and then you're like, all right, well, we smashed this team for the 1-3, but you know, it doesn't matter because our record is not that great. So the fact that they're able to do it at 0-1 and look pretty comfortable, I think speaks volumes for what we can kind of expect heading into the future for them.
And I think, not to cast too many aspersions on the rest of our teams, the fact that they've done this not just by being better in the double shield mirror, which we've seen a lot of so far in the first 2 days of trials, but by finding their own flavor of play with the heavy dive, with the Hammond, with Winston, with Diva, to stand out in such a way with that interesting comp, with that different comp, I think speaks volumes about the level of preparedness and the understanding of how this team's limitations work. You know, this is clearly a level of coaching that says, hey guys, double shield is not our best look, let's just run what we're good at because we're real good at it.
I will say though that we may need to end up seeing double shield from them at some point, and at least here on defense, that's what's going to open up with, right? So excited to kind of bring that forward. If they can perform just as well on double shield, I think Dreadlords are in pretty healthy position going forward. Because that's the one question I have. It's great that you can play the non-standard, but can you play when it comes down to brass tacks? Can you play the mirror? Can you take advantage in the mirror? And that's where the question has to answer.
Hey, you know, Lafano and I were saying, hey, look, they're doing really good at running this unique style that's not just running the mirror. Well, yeah, here we go. Dreadlords running the double shield now, set up a little bit further forward from where we saw HSL last time, so it's going to be a little less cart progress given over before this first team fight happens. Let's see how this works out for Dreadlords.
Oh, the immortality first so early here from HSL. You do not like to see that.
That's really unfortunate. So Gibson able to push up a little bit under the cover of that immortality field falling. We'll get into the back. Nice hold dash through, hits him a meaty 30% of that ultimate. A couple more runs through like that, and we're going to see that Dragon Blade ready to go. HSL with a rotation here to take up almost the offensive position, and a massively early amplification matrix from Source is going to help TAS get the first pick of this exchange, with ADM now down and out of the fight. Vendetta still in this and keep it going. And speaking of early ultimates, here's Sir Gibson with the Dragon Blade, finds one with the dash reset, but will get taken out in the middle of it. Dreadlords coming out with the hold for now, with the cart just round that final corner.
Oh, and Snappa is going to be stalled out here too. They're going to stay the late kills onto Kage here. Is he going to get away?
Yeah, that was a little bit of
okay.
Crouch spam with the coach gun. Just booby his way out.
Oh, I mean, Arca was not back in time. The only problem there with the blade being committed by Sir Gibson, the difference between an ultimate that's not built and an ultimate that's thrown away is negligible. There is no real difference there. So you may want that Dragon Blade back, especially with the wealth of resources coming back from the Dreadlords here. And in the mirror, I would expect this supercharger here to be a big difference maker from past.
Well, here's the big difference in ult charge, of course. We've got the Bob, and we've got that Gravitic Flux, turn them into a shooting gallery. So far, not too much from the Bob, but a huge amount of pressure allows Vendetta and Kage to get it in and take out the tank line from the Dreadlords. We've still got the support alive on the high ground of Big Earls, but it's a hide into nothing. There's too many HSL players left in, and we're going to see them cap point A.
Good response to the greed from Dreadlords there from HSL. That's what we needed to see from them for the first, the first half of the series that we've watched so far. They allowed the greedy supercharger to come in and then just zoned out the push. And I think from Dreadlords, a little bit of an overstep there. Now the Dreadlords are not in a position to kind of retake, and with Sir Gibson taking this high ground and building up towards this Dragon Blade, HSL can find a ton of value here. And
aggressive positioning from the DPS. This is great. Allows them to build up that early ult charge and just slow the recontest onto the cart. When they do get to that cart, though, they're coming into a whole world of pain with the ultimates that Dreadlords have on board. Source starts things off with that amplification matrix down onto the low ground. And very cleverly, HSL back the way down into that cover. Immortality build out early, used to protect the tanks as they fall low. Feanor looking for value with the blade, can't find too much with it, but does buy a huge amount of space to see HSL back away from that incoming danger. Now as Dreadlords rubber band their way back in there, starting to get those kills. Pure Irish with the double, rocks the dome onto Barrett, and that is going to be a clean team fight win for Dreadlords.
And that is sort of the power of just waiting and biding your time. The immortality field is forced early, so there's not really much to defend against the Blade and Bob. And sure, the Blade doesn't get a ton of kills, but it builds enough damage that allows, the cleanup onto ADM. And as a result, you're going to clean up this next fight. That being said, you are actually in a tough position. I would like to see how aggressive this could halt, but HSL has the advantage here. Should they pull the go button? This supercharger.
Looks like they're going to go for it. We've got the Super Blade online, so Gibson finds one. Arca now out of the fight. Dashing back in, looking for the second. Will find Cloud. Ulted back in, but down and out. And HSL, they hit that surface and bounce right the way back up again.
Excellent execution there. You walk out. You do not give anyone time to sort of execute. As you said, the supercharger into the Dragon Blade. It's instant kills. And despite Pure Irish using the Gravitic Flux, it does not catch the Genji. So Sir Gibson finds a ton of value. Into this next fight, though, the mirror is now here as well. If Dreadlords can get out of spawn, they will have the same tools required. Across the high ground. Oh, huge dynamite.
Yeah, this is great aggressive positioning, and we saw the kill almost come through there onto Cloud. TAS going to get taken down, and Kage still has the Bob ready to go. Amplification Matrix out, Immortality field out, everybody pulling go on everything here from the Dreadlords, but HSL, with the aggressive positioning of the damage coming in, have managed to round their way through this fight.
And then I take a quick moment there to show Pure Irish the what for in the Sigma battle.
Wow.
And that was a very efficient fight from HSL. They took the high ground, they took the amplification matrix, and Kage did not miss his shots. Such a painful place to be in a corridor against the amplification matrix. On this retake from Dreadlords, the answer, they have high ground. If they don't give it up, there's still a possibility here where they can do a ton of work. But Feanor needs to find, I think he needs to find something with his Dragon Blade here.
Yeah, hopefully with a little bit of help there from the Supercharger, they may just open this up that little way.
They are fighting into a rally though. Blade is going to have a hard time.
Yeah, so it's got to come out quick. It's really got to come out before there's much chance to build too much into the top of this. Well, that's going to be it. Wow, Sir Gibson with the triple. Feanor looking to get one with the Supercharger there, but there is too much available for him. Feanor's going to get taken down, and that is going to be HSL back in control of the card. And now there are just over 30 seconds difference in the time bank. We're looking for a recontest here from Dreadlords.
We're looking for a recontest from Dreadlords, but Dreadlords have nothing. The Supercharger here is going to put so much pressure on the re-entry, and this is just a massive amount of damage coming through.
Oh, right for the amplification matrix, catches them all, coming out of spawn. We'll see Feanor jump onto the high ground to try and deal with it. But there's too little that he's able to do. He can't tag in. That was a blistering point C after a rickety point B for HSL and a near even time bank of
I mean, that's what, an 8-second difference? 206 to 54, so 12-second difference. The thing there is, at the top of the round, I said, are Dreadlords capable of playing the mirror? Because that's going to be what sets them, I think, apart and in their quest for contenders. Unfortunately, that defensive round was not particularly awe-inspiring from Dreadlords. Credit to HSL, though. The sheer aggression, recognizing that they had the win potential, the ultimate economy throughput, and just finding tons of value. And I think the big difference there, really it comes down to the blade difference on that third point, right? On one side, you have a Dragon Blade that's just ineffectively slashing into a rally and gets one kill versus the Dragon Blade that has everything at its back and is really not going to go down. And that really was the difference in the double shield. Now, a good evolution here from HSL, though, on their defenses. We set up for the second, for the extra innings, if you will, here on the defense. HSL going just immediately out of the bank with the Torbjorn, with the McCree. They expect a dive composition coming in, and they're working around it already.
That's right. The two least favorite characters for coming up against this turret, at the very least, would be the Tracer and the Sombra. It makes it very difficult for them to get their work done. So if they opt to try and make this work, it's going to be hard. And if they opt to go back and swap something a little more concrete against this, it's going to cost them a wealth of time. Feanor's going to get scouted out there and sent back. We'll see the cart start to move around this first quarter, but this is where it's going to start to get tricky for them. Where the rubber starts to meet the road. Cloud momentarily stuck to the ground there, almost focused out, but able to escape to the high ground and keep this going. We're going to see them rotate now through this low ground tunnel. Might be a fake out, because I don't think they want to abandon the cart unless they can help. They've got the cooldowns back and they're ready to come back into this one. Ow! Arca gets caught out by Barrett, and they're already in the 5v6, but the divers coming through. The mobility is gone, and HSL are able to dismantle the divers that comes in.
And I mean, this is a really smart play from HSL. They're like, all right, you want to dive? We'll just force your dive into a brawl, and you're not going to win that against our health pools. You need an assassination target. Feanor down late. And I like this adaptation of playing on the cart. They're like, all right, if you want to dive, we're just not going to give you the opportunity. Again, I think there needs to be an adaptation here from Dreadlords for the first time in the series, really, Phil, that they need to find an opening here that they just don't have.
Might be succumbing to the sunk cost fallacy, because Feanor around the 70% mark on that EMP. We're going to see the Coalescence come out first to keep this going, but unfortunately stunned out of it. But they have secured themselves the 5v6 with Kage now down. Task throwing hands on the cart, looking to get that environmental kill onto the Torbjorn. Can't find it. You see Feanor TP in, back skill will come through onto Sir Gibson, but so far still a lot of bodies, a lot of pressure at this choke. Self-destruct thrown in, going to be looking to find the double around those shields. That's going to be Adam, Snappy, taking down Vendetta and Barrett's to fall. It's going to be in overtime, but Dreadlords are in control of the cart once again.
Cloud has helped sets up that self-destruct, gets the sound wave in to knock everyone into position to get the self-destruct in. The big problem here is that everything needed to be committed from the offense on that fight. Walking back in, HSL has a wealth of resources, and should they choose to defend here on first, I think they have a real difference, a real chance at making a difference in this fight. Even a Molten Core and a Gravitic Flux Carbon on the point will close this map out.
I'm just thinking about that Sig 9. Oh, stun. Still able to get that pulse bomb.
Denied.
Oh, eaten by Vendetta. Beautiful heads-up play there. There's the Molten Core. There's the Gravitic Flux. Sound Barrier comes out from Cloud. Will keep them alive through some of it, but of course, that Molten Core is going to linger and it's going to burn. It's going to take Task and Cloud down, and that is it. A scant handful of meters from the end of point A. So we won't be seeing another round here, LaFon. It's going to be do or die now for Dreadlords on the defense.
This is where it comes down to, can HSL, you know, continue their offensive run looking as strong as they did with their double shield, or will Dreadlords figure out the mistakes they made and not give up nearly as much progress in a fight? Remember, the first fight was Dreadlords favored in the double shield mirror, but then in the second fight lost out to the ult economy and the ult rotations that HSL brought to the table. Dreadlords, I think, they need to be able to come back into this defense and set up and not give away that much progress for free.
Man, it's really hard to call this. When you think back to the predictions that were made in the Monkey Bubble Reflash community about how this was going to go, and we had that 50-50 split as to how this was. Honestly, like in the mirror on point A, they didn't seem that far apart from each other. It's only as they started to get into point B and point C on the offensive push from HSL that really had the upper hand. If Dreadlords can just grind this point A out again that little bit, they are in a really good position to take this.
I do not disagree with that point at all. And I think for Dreadlords, I think the big difference, one of the reasons why they ended up giving up point A so quickly, is they allowed those staggered kills to just escape back to their team, right? On that point, Kage scouting out. You're going to see there's nothing there on the Widow, switches back to the Ashe. So we are in full mirror territory here. And, I mean, we're essentially going to get one fight on...
Early Immortality is going to start things out with HSL on the offense. Going to be probably wanting that back, or at least going to be playing calm and collected and cool until they've got that back.
Sir Gibson behind, gets the dash through.
Yeah, that's great. Huge amount of ult charge already puts him more or less level pegging with Feynor. And the cart's still rolling. We've really got to see some sort of contest coming out from Dreadlords here. This is just going to sail right the way through. Sir Gibson with another dash through, now at 60%. One more and a couple of shurikens. We'll see that Dragon Blade online. Pure Irish gets the first pick of this exchange. ADM taken out of the fight for now, but they've got to capitalize. They've got to get in. They've got to contest. They've got to keep this going this match a little bit longer. Feynor now able to find one and takes Barrows out. That's going to be the push crippled now from HSL. They're going to have to reset. It's still got a minute to make this work, and it's not going to go far.
No, and it doesn't have to go far, and they built up a ton of resources in that last fight while not actually giving a whole heck of a lot to Dreadlords. HSL are in pretty good position. No, they do not have high ground control, but should they get Sir Gibson into decent position here, I think they can make a break of it, especially with the fact that they forced the Amplification Matrix out in that last fight.
There's a window for you. Pure Irish has used the accretion for now, so nothing to stop the Genji Blade just yet. Ooh, beautiful coach gun out of the way as the flux comes through. In fact, nothing out of that, as most members of the team were able to just ability their way out of it. They tag back into the cart with just under 3 minutes left to go, but here's the blade. It takes down the Immortality field. Down goes Tass, but Cloud with the whip shot finds Sir Gibson. Now to the Bob in the background, putting a lot of pressure through on to HSL. Ark is going to go there. Feynor's going to find Barrett, and this is still very much little pegging in this final fight. A rally there from Cloud, and Barrett not in the fight just yet as we round the overtime tick coming down. This is where Dreadlords might be able to round out this in the series. Arca able to get to the good bit of flux in over the top, snap it down, Kage down. It's now down to Sir Gibson on the trace. Try and keep this going just that little bit further, but the rest of the team, they're going to be slow to roll back into this one. They just get Barrett back onto the point with that rally rolling, but they're taken down by Tass. The overtime wick ticks down. There's no contest coming through. No, they tag it at the last second, but ADM whittled down as they come back in. There's Vendetta tagging in with the Winston, but this is all just a last desperate attempt at keeping this going. Dreadlords in control of the point as the staggers come through, and they take the series 2-0.
And that was such a close final fight on a hairpin. At the very last moment, one elimination in HSL's favor, and we may be going to a third map, but ultimately just could not close it out in that last second, right? And just Dreadlords hanging on by a thread as well. They're able to come in clutch and farm up to the Dragon Blade, get those final eliminations. The sheer survivability of Dreadlords in that last fight, credit to them, but I think a well-earned victory here for Dreadlords over HSL.
Absolutely, a real step up in quality of gameplay from what we saw from the game yesterday, and I'm looking forward to seeing what this team can do over the rest of Trials and whether they really got it in the tank to take us up into Contenders alongside with them.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said here. I mean, there's still a couple more matches for them to play, so there is still a couple more a couple of more things we need to learn about their game style before we can really say, we can really give a full address of what Dreadlords are capable of. But at least early on, I think a great evolution, even one game to the next, from Dreadlords here in Contenders Trials, and impressive showing here today.
Yeah, it's really good. And this is not to say that HSL were without merit
Not
entirely.
at all.
They've made Dreadlords work incredibly hard. And that point, that Route 66 offense from them, I thought was absolutely fantastic. Probably, well, in fact, even reflected by the time bank, a better offense than we saw from Dreadlords. It's just that they just seem to lack that final touch of polish in that final point A offense on Route 66. I genuinely, for a second, thought they had that when they had the Dragon Blade ready to go, but there were just too many answers from Dreadlords to be able to shut that down. It's really unfortunate for HSL.
Yeah, I can for HSL. This is not a go back to the drawing board moment, I don't think, for them. I think this is more you just need to evolve just a little bit. And I mean, that's going to be the highlight. That's going to be the storyline for all of Contenders Trials. It's evolution, right? This is about how do you make that next step? How do you get into Contenders proper? And there's an element here of watching HSL and seeing they're just a single step behind. I don't think they're, far and away worse or anything like that. I think talent for talent, they had the mechanics required to keep up. It's just that in certain moments, in those clutch instances, it was one or two things that kept them away. Whether it be they didn't have accretion on cooldown, or the break bash wasn't available when they needed it. It was small things like that. That's, I think, just what made, especially on Route 66, that put Dreadlords ahead just a little bit. So for HSL, I think a little bit of work required, certainly, as their record suggests, but not nearly as massive a gap as we kind of would have worried about looking at an 0-2.
That's right. Well, I do believe we've got an interview coming your way very shortly. And in fact, we've got Pure Irish, the Sigma player for Dreadlords, coming your way to talk about that previous match.
Hello.
So, yeah, hi, Pure Irish. Welcome to the stream. Congratulations on that win. How are you feeling?
Pretty good. Especially, yeah, we're all really happy, especially with that last fight. That last fight was really close, so we're all really excited about that.
I mean, walk us through that last fight, because it was a hairpin difference in that final engagement. What's sort of going through your mind both at the start and at the very end of it? Just walk us through it.
Oh, at the start, Task Cloud did the all tracking, and Task was laying out a plan. We saw the Sigma go top right, so we're like, Sigma, get him out. They all start rotating. It's just all a blur after that, to be honest. I don't even remember what happened. I just remember Task going down. I was thinking this fight is lost, but then we just got a pick, and it just all snowballed from there. It was amazing.
It's amazing how thin some of these fight decisions really are when it comes down to it. I wanted to take things back away a little bit from Route 66 that we've just seen and talk about the composition that you've been running with the Wrecking Ball Diva comp with Feanor on Farah. How did you as a team arrive at that as a method of playing when everybody else seems to be running double shield at the minute?
Well, for us, it kind of fits our hero pools, but it's also we played this comp a while ago, back when we were playing in OD. We used to one trick this comp a lot, so we're all pretty comfortable on it. And yeah, we figured it to pull it out kind of last minute. It was we used to play it on some maps, but we started running it more and more maps today. So I'm glad it worked out.
Yeah, very very fun to watch. LaFawn, any other questions before we let Pure Irish go and celebrate with the rest of the Dreadlords?
I mean, congratulations to you guys. A well played game. Any final thoughts here, Pure Irish?
Just wanna say that some people look down on the team we have. They don't think that we're that strong, but I'm excited to show that we're strong and we have what it takes.
Thank you very much, Pure Irish. Certainly doing a good job of setting yourselves up as a strong team in this region. Can't wait to see what you do in the rest of Contenders Trials. But guys, that's going to be all we've got from HSL, Esports and Dreadlords coming up just now. But we do have one more game coming your way on the Monkey Bubble Reflash stream. We're going to throw it to a quick break when we get those guys in and ready to go with the next stream. But don't go too far, because we will be right back. Hey guys, we warned you not to go too far because we're back even quicker than anybody could possibly have anticipated. Game number 2 coming your way. Big Hungry Phil and LaFon still with you. And we've got Angry Titans up against the Ultimate. LaFon, what have we got to look forward to?
A lot, actually. I think this is going to be a very, very good game here ahead of us. And let's start with the Ultimates, because this is a roster that those of you who've been following EU for a while will know the names of. There's some very recognizable players here on this roster. And I think starting off with this tank line, Henningsen, I think, leading the charge, no pun intended there. Actually, no, definitely intended.
Definitely.
But Henningsen taking the lead on this roster as the main tank player. Phil, this is a very familiar squad for a lot of people.
It is, and I have to admit, I saw this roster reveal. I think they revealed on the 5th, or they announced they were a team on the 5th, and went, man, like, trials start tomorrow. How are they only just getting a team together? And I started looking through the player list, like, oh yeah, because our Monk Mudder had it. Okay, yeah, this is just the Clockwork Vendetta roster with a couple of additions, kind of rebranded. But I'm glad to see these guys back. They kind of struggled to live up to the original magic of the first generation of Clockwork Vendetta, but they have had some real standout moments. And this core, built around the DPS lineup of Monk Mudder and Kasar players, I think can do really good things in Contenders Trials, and I'm excited to see how they bring that all to bear.
But we don't have a dance without two partners, and for the other side of it, it's going to be Angry Titans, a very long-standing org here in Contenders EU Contenders Trials right now. But a full reblown roster, a rebuilt roster. There we go. As across the board, some interesting pickups, and I think who stands out to you the most here? Because former Academy players on this team, in Doggo, who was on Uprising Academy in previous seasons, but now making a return to EU.
That's right. I think the swap over from Revival back to playing in the EU, where the ping is maybe a little bit kinder for Doggo, may see her have even more success than we saw for them on Revival. But the Angry Titans, you're quite right, a very storied roster, and subsequently a lot of players that have come through the Angry Titans roster, but nothing quite like this one. One thing that I did want to point out, actually, very briefly, considering we're talking about Clockwork Vendetta, Starboy, who is going to be playing support for Angry Titans, was previously themselves on Clockwork Vendetta, albeit very briefly. So, you know, maybe there's a small amount of tension, a frisson of tension between these two teams based on shared players. Angry Titans, I think, they've got a lot to live up to, given the pedigree of the name, and a new roster is always going to be a difficult thing for a team with that kind of pedigree behind them to come to terms with.
I think if you're the Angry Titans players, you're just playing another game in Contenders Trials. You really shouldn't put added pressure on yourself to perform. I think having your gameplay speak for itself is the most important thing. And I think at this point in time, it's easy for us on the outside as observers to say, oh, you know, it was once a story brought. You got to put that out of your mind if you're a player. Just play the game, go for the win, and try your best to perform at a high level. Because I think at the end of the day, your goal is to make it to Contenders Plus, to go from this Contenders Trials all the way up that path to pro. So it's not about the org's name. It's not about the theatrics and accolades and so forth that comes with it. It's all about proving yourself as a player. And so for Angry Titans, I think that's, as an Angry Titans player, that's kind of where you have to situate yourself. But there are definite upsides to having that kind of experience that we'll see if Angry Titans can bring to bear here today. But we are going to start off on Control as our first map, as always. And Busan is going to be the opening gambit, the Ultimates versus Angry Titans. Phil, again, it should be a very, very good game.
It should. I mean, the quality of the players on these teams, particularly the big names that stand out from having played on previous teams before, but also the maybe the unknown rising talent. You know, and I'm looking at Sir Majed and Chalky Milk in particular here for this one. We know that by their position on the ladder and their performance in things like flash ops and the breakable barrier tournament, these guys, they have a lot of chops. They've got the skills to really make this work, and this should be a barnstormer of a match. And we're ready to go in. We're on Oasis, starting on Gardens, which, you know, historically this kind of screams Farah to me. Don't know if we're going to see that in the meta that we've got at the minute.
No, I would expect to see from these teams a fairly standard setup in terms of the expectations of team composition. So likely the double shield, likely the Genji Ashe as your sort of DPS look. And at least initially, one team is definitely providing that. Angry Titans going certainly standard early on. No Ashe, it is going to be McCree, so mirrored that part out.
Yeah, interesting though from the Ultimates, different lineup almost across the board. So, well, no, sorry, we've got a May and we've got a Reinhardt in, so they're going to be looking to get in and brawl. Angry Titans backing out of their initial approach, want to get the wrap around here because they know they've given up the high ground now to the Ultimates. Big pull will bring Henningsen down onto the lower ground, bringing the rest of his team into a significant amount of danger. He's not really got any way to get back up and contest. Wall out from Kassar plays, stops that rotation, comes to the main, and first one goes over to the Ultimates with no blood exchange so far. So Majed falling down to 1 health here. And Love just up on the high ground of the steps, able to help pile in the pressure as Henningsen goes down. We're going to lose Dogger, hits a Monk Butter as well, so a 1-for-1 trade for now. But we do see main tank traded out for main support here, survivability down for both teams, and in fact it is going to be kill for kill for kill. Angry Titans finally have one in their favour, Antigon punches right back again. Monk Butter closing in on having this Deadeye, already has it ready to go, might be able to just put this in and secure the team fight. No, knows that he's lost too many people on his team and is going to back out and survive for the next one.
The one big difference here is as Magmata tries to get around the flank here, not going to find that kill. They're looking to get the retake here. The big difference is the support line. There is a Lucio versus Brig, and we can see just via the ult charge, the Lucio is a very greedy pick in terms of the fact that it allows you to get into position faster, but in the middle of a fight, you're not going to get nearly the same amount of burst heals that the Brig gets you. And Starboy so far ahead in terms of the resource of the ultimate there. You can see the difference in healing potential as they eventually eke out a win. But Amplification Matrix opened up really early. The Ultimates are going for a very greedy attack.
They did, and it has brought them some leeway to get onto the point, but it's not allowed them to really combo and get too much damage or too many kills. There's the stun over onto Gnassen, but didn't find too much. We do get the rally out of Starboy, and we get the flux out from Antigon here. So this was a weird set of ult exchanges. Really, given how the team fight was, neither of those needed.
A bold Gravitic Flux that I think is going to come back to haunt, especially as Kassar plays, uses the Blizzard as you highlighted. Those are some very high impact resources that are no longer available to the Ultimates, and now Angry Titans are looking pretty set. They're going to have the Gravitic Flux. They're going to be able to combo it if they so choose with either the High Noon or the Supercharger. A lot of damage throughput available in this fight for Angry Titans, and they have a high ground control. They're looking pretty comfortable.
There's the High Noon from Monk, spared onto the point. The Higher Noon with the wall, but just no follow through with the damage. And now it's Love's turn to see what they can get with this one. Monk's going to go down. Well, looks like we've got one in the crosshairs. It looks like they were raised just above the parapet, knocked out of the way of that incoming damage. And this is a very comfortable team fight win, the third in a row for Angry Titans.
And Angry Titans did have to commit everything, so there is a small, tiny window of opportunity here for the Ultimates to come back in where they're going to have advantage in support Ultimates. They're going to have the sound barrier online, so they will be able to go for a very aggressive push. But speaking of aggressive, look how the defense are posturing. They don't know they're here.
There's a big flash. We got the sound barrier, and we've got the immortality field out as well from the Ultimate. We will see Chalky Milk go around the corner to keep this contest going as Monk butterflies Little Flame. A lot of damage now piled into the Ultimate. But it looks like they've got the numbers advantage, and they've got the Monk Mudder advantage as well as he scores the third. Doggo takes advantage of that opening, and Monk Mudder goes down. Kassar plays able to find Starboy. Doggo on the high ground, keeping this contested, but can't stop the flip coming through. Gnassen will find Chucky Milk, but with just him and Doggo left on the point, that is going to be it for the fight.
Going to escape as she gets back to spawn with her team. And now this is going to be a question of, was there enough time bought by the Ultimates to get their resources online to counter the nature of that fight? That was a stall fight from Angry Titans. They didn't expect to win. They were just going to build resources and buy time, and maybe they'd get lucky. But now they're coming back in. They're going to have the Gravitic Flux. They're going to have the Dragon Blade. There is tools available, and they get the first pick off too.
Oh, that's absolutely huge. Sir Majid down. Blizzard's going to be thrown in here just to try and stop some of that follow-through damage. Love, first holding the wall, has one in his sight, and Tegan goes down a scant 9% away from that Audubon. And now it's Dragon Blade time for Little Flame, going toe-to-toe with Chalky Milk, finds them, takes them down. Monk Mudder out of the fight at 99 to 85. This has got to be the cap here for Angry Titans.
It absolutely is, and don't let that 85 fool you. Angry Titans were in significant control for a large portion of that round as round one goes in their favor. I really like that hold that came through. It may have looked at least like a botched hold that they were going in, they got caught out, but they forced a ton of resources out and meanwhile built their own up. So Angry Titans in fantastic position after round 1. Heading over to round 2 though, we are going to go to City Center. And Phil, I think an evolution is absolutely necessary for both squads. The team comps will have to switch up here. I don't think the double shield will get much of a look here on City Center.
It's interesting just watching the Ultimates lineup there, spinning like the slots of a roulette, trying to decide what they were going to run here. And I kind of like this pick, the dive with the Pharah. We've seen this already do quite well this evening. And with Monkbutter coming back in on the Tracer, there's a lot of space control for the Ultimates.
There is certainly a lot of availability. The one difference here is the spam is going to be available from the sky for Kassar plays versus Little Flame trying to farm in the backline. If Kassar players can get into position, this could be a really dangerous proposition.
Oh
for,
no, wow. Not able to get in and Tigson magic out straight away. And Love finding the second. This is already a really unfortunate fight for the Ultimates. Kassar players is going to try and get out, but that is it. And, well, Henningsen right into the waiting arms of Love.
That's not something you expect to hear in Overwatch very frequently. Kassar player is going to switch off the Pharah. We're going for a Genji look here. All right, so this is looking a lot like GT Dive of old, the only difference being the break instead of Lucio. But welcome back to the archives.
Nostalgic? Yeah.
Yes,
Welcome back to Nostalgia Watch. Little Flame already out of cover there, pressuring them down and getting very close to having this EMP online. A scant 1/5 of the way through, and Love about to throw this pulse bomb into the back line. Gets it round the shield and will take out Chucky Milk, but it's a 1-for-1 trade. Little Flame is down. Monkmeta focused down by Crocs though here. Looks like the Ultimates are still in this fight for now, but they are at a significant disadvantage. It's going to be Sir Majed desperately trying to hide, not able to make that work. But Kassar Plays is starting to be the difference maker here. He's getting picks and he's already charging up this Dragon Blade.
For them, they've got to go against the Moira of Doggo here, so they're not likely to be able to win that fight from the Genji's perspective. That's going to buy time for the respawns to come back in. Henningsen's so low already, forced to retreat, and Angry Titans are looking in position to keep this hold going.
And really, just all of the ults in the world to throw at this. Doggo's going to get the double with the Coalescence, and it is the support lineup for the Angry Titans that want their turn in the sun, and they're going to push right the way up to enemy spawn.
The only thing about Busan is that you can't shoot someone who's inside those doors, so you just stand there looking a little bit foolish, maybe waving hello, asking how their day is going. Here's the problem, is the win condition right now is going to be, I think, the Dragon Blade from Kassar Plays, but Little Flame can shut it all down with an early EMP that just sort of sets up Angry Titans for victory here.
And that's big. Kassar Plays is being kept alive, but Sir Majid goes down, and they really wanted that combo. They wanted the nano boost on top of it. Monkmudder is going to be able to equalize, but just as quickly, we see Doggo go down. Starboy now pops the sound barrier, and it's going to be down to the organic, the raw food blade from Kassar Plays to try and make this work, but he can't find any value with it and will get rolled by the Wrecking Ball of Knassen, and this is looking like a 99-0 shutout in favor of the Angry Titans. Henningsen's able to get Crocs here, but Doggo with the Coalescence once more can do all the damage in the world, and there's no way of blocking it unless, of course, Monkmudder can find the clip into the back of the head. But again, the numbers are just not here sufficiently for the Ultimates, and Angry Titans are just going to grind out this clock. Henningsen has started to make things work a little bit here. We've got 2 kills. Chocimilk finds the 3rd, and what looked like a lost fight here for the Ultimates might just allow them to get back in on sufficient numbers to flip this back around.
There's still a stall coming back in, so it's going to be all about the respawners here. The tag comes back in yet again from Angry Titans, and with Doggo back, there's still a possibility for Angry Titans to hold this one out.
This has been such a strong attempt at a recontest it. Knassen with the power driver generates the mines, drops the payload. Monkmudder goes down, and with the mines on top of the supports and the EMP to round things out, that is it. A valiant pushback from the Ultimates, but the Angry Titans, far too angry, far too large. They take Oasis.
Stay angry indeed. That was a real, just excellent stall from Angry Titans there, staggering back in one by one until their respawns came back in favor, and with just superior resource economy, of course, they're going to be able to hold that one out. I mean, they had the Pulse Bomb coming online, the EMP coming online, and Knassen with the beautiful Minefield Pile Driver combo to get a 4K at the very end is what helps them close it out. Credit to Angry Titans, a very dominant first round, all things considered, and setting themselves up for success here after map number 1.
the difference maker here is, Lafon? Like, what is it about what Angry Titans were running that meant the Ultimates just couldn't find their footing on the point, particularly on that second round where they got 0 on the board?
It's the big difference. I think. Well, the big difference on the first point was that recognizing their win condition and ult economy of both themselves and the enemy team. That's really what set up point A, or the first round for Angry Titans, is putting themselves in a chance to win by draining resources away from the opposing team. From the second round, though, I think they just played a better dive composition. They got into position faster, they got the first pick off faster, and based on the fact that that first fight went to Angry Titans because the Pharah just wasn't able to get into position, you are at a losing advantage in dive v dive because you're just rotating ultimates, you're rotating cooldowns, and every time the ultimates were walking back into an ult fight, ironically, without those ultimate resources that they desperately needed to even things up. And in the one fight that, you know, sort of things were sliding into Ultimate's favor, then Angry Titans just came in clutch, and that made all the difference in the world.
Still, at least we did see some signs of life from the Ultimates, particularly on the first round of Oasis. It just felt like they couldn't quite find the momentum they needed, and I wonder how much of that was compositional. You pointed out that they were running the Lucio rather than the Brig, and so their healing output, their ability to protect their teammates with shielding, with shield bashes, with displacement from the whip shot, just wasn't there. So, you know, coming into this next round, are we maybe expecting to see some adaptations from the Ultimates?
I mean, we absolutely will, because we're going to Route 66, where I don't think you're necessarily going to get a chance at seeing that same kind of greedy composition work out. And make no mistake, Lucio is a very greedy pick, especially in the current patch. I don't think there's a lot of reasons why we're not seeing Lucio right now. There's an argument to be made that he's perhaps at the worst state he's been in a very long time, at least since the Moth meta, in terms of why he's not played. So I think there is an element of that coming to play. Like the Ultimates got very greedy on their first attack, and I think that kind of transcended into the rest of the map. But here on Route 66, we are going to head into an Escort map as the second map type, and that means that if there is going to be a difference of opinion in terms of what the Ultimates are going to run, now is the time to kind of show that it was just a one-fight loss that turned into a snowball that you couldn't quite break, right? Route 66 is going to allow you a chance at getting those even fights going, and I think that's what you need to kind of do here on second map.
One thing I would like to see is, I don't know if you particularly followed EU Contenders back when CV were first in their heyday, but one of the things that Monk Mudder was famous for was this Ana Widowmaker flex. Obviously, that's no longer on the cards. I'm not expecting him to be able to flex that anymore, but he has a mean Widowmaker. He has a huge amount of potential. Looks like we're not going to be seeing that just yet, but boy, that would be a sight to see. I think he can still put out a lot of work on the Ashe.
I mean, the Ashe is still a very solid pick. And Monk Meta is not going to surprise me with his mechanical prowess. It's anyone who's following Contenders when Clockwork Vendetta were in their heyday knows how good he is, and so I'm not at all surprised by that. In fact, if you weren't watching CV back then, what were you doing?
Go back and find
one of the most entertaining series of Overwatch or teams in Overwatch we've ever seen.
Quite right. Well, coming out the gates, we've got that mirror matchup with the Genji and the Ashe and the double shield. Dropping from the high ground, just using that third-person perspective to get a little bit of an idea of working.
Sark plays so greedy. Yeah, looking for that ultimate. He gets 60%, so it's not bad, but if he had gotten down there, that would have been a very disastrous situation.
That would have been pretty much put on hold until we get to those doors again. Chucky Milk still on the high ground. Monk Mudder with all the space in the world to find headshots. Shield very low there for Knazen. We'll be able to get out of that just about. And Kasarplay is now closing in on 60%. Back up onto the high ground. Payload stalling for now, and Kasarplay is looking for the dash through to follow through the TNT. Monk Mudder with the double rounds out that team fight, and this is where the hold's really going to start up.
Oh man, if Crocs gets, there's no way he gets out alive. Oh my goodness.
Oh.
That was close.
Could have been much closer.
Zago, quite a bit of ult charge actually, so up to that 85%-ish mark. In this next fight though, it is all ultimates here, literally, as they're gonna have a ton of resources online. Monk Mudder with the Bob, combo the Bob with a blade for the full fight.
Wow, what a displacement there. The Bob thrown right the way back thanks to the whip shot from Starboy. Means that he's not getting a huge amount of value, but now it's Kazar into the backline. Down goes the Immortality Field, and making themselves scarce are the Angry Titans, but it's not going to stop Kazar plays finding Crocs, and now toe-to-toe with Love and his opposite number.
Oh man, Star plays so very weak. Has to hide in the corner till Sports can get to him. Low going. Love down yet again, and it feels like at this point the Angry Titans have no solution to the high ground that is being abused so beautifully by the Ultimates. Little Flame going down yet again. Another stall out. Starplay is going to surge. Yeah, going to survive more than easily here. This is a reset time. You need to buy time where you can have an ult dump for. If you're not able to retake the high ground, you need to just brute force it from Angry Titans. And I think they need to wait for a time when they just have superior economy, which is coming up very shortly. 5 ultimates going to be online this next fight for them.
See the amplification matrix to start things out there from Sir Majid, and it's going to make everybody just that a little bit more deadly. And Chalky Milk helping to find Doggo, and even just losing that one, and the displace there from Chalky Milk sends Knassen down, and another big hold there for the Ultimates. 1 minute 20 seconds left on the clock. They now have Ultimates to work with. This has got to be the fight that makes it happen for Angry Titans.
They used the rally though. They thought the last fight was going to be the one that they were going to commit to, but Doggo goes down early, and without your Baptiste, you're going to have a really rough time staying through. So they don't have the rally to kind of counter out this Dragon Blade. So Star Plays can, I was going to say find value. Instead, he's going to be sent back to the spawn. This is the opening now that Angry Titans needed.
This is absolutely huge, particularly when you consider the Kazar Blaze had that Dragon Blade ready to go, and it's dueling Bobs. Butler for Butler on the point right now, but this is going to be the first of 4. Crocs and Love able to get the double there. Henningsen now down, and Love on the low ground looking for those high ground picks. Will get the triple. Little Flame finds Chucky Milk, and with just 40 seconds on the clock, we're going to see this roll through towards the end of point A.
This is now going to be the duel of the Dragon Blades, as that's basically the only thing that's the really only damage thing throughput on this map. The difference is that Henningsen is going to have the supercharger, so there's a dash slash combo available for Kazar plays. Little Flame is going to have to do this vanilla style. Is there a contest available? There's been a couple of really good knockbacks.
There we go, we get the Dragon Blade out from Kazar Blaze, finds the triple into the back, Immortality Field out, and he's going to chase Crocs all the way to the Mega Health Pack. That was so close to being a no contest on point A, but they've got this fight, and they've got it in overtime. Kazar Blaze is going to chase down Knassen, chuck him up with the finisher, and I don't know that Angry Titans can touch this.
Simply cannot, and in the chaos of Kazar Blaze's beautiful blade, gets 3 kills off 1 slash, essentially. Well, Flame tried to get a counter blade out. They weren't able to. A little lackadaisical there from Angry Titans. They didn't have a plan of attack after their attack failed, or after they failed to prevent the contest from coming through. And that is going to be a full hold on Route 66.
Right, Angry Titans going to need the fuller hold if they want to take this series here. Otherwise, we'll be going to our 3rd map. It is, of course, first to 2 during Contenders Trials. But just to go back a little bit, is the chutzpah there from Kazar Plays to go for that blade when there wasn't even a guaranteed touch for the contest was a ridiculous, near suicidal level of bravery.
The absolute faith in his team, though. He knew that the supercharger was going to be down from Henningsen. He knew he had the damage that he needed. And on top of all that, he knew that someone would touch the point. There is nothing worse than the team that has a plan and then does not follow through on it because one player kind of chickens out or gets cold feet, right? The fact that that is not the case there, Kazar Plays sticks to the plan of attack, and it works out so beautiful, shows that it doesn't matter how bad the plan is if everyone executes with you. And I think that was a good plan, so that speaks even volumes louder about what was able to be accomplished there by the Ultimates. Now, though, a close hold going to be coming through from Angry Titans as they're playing an old-style composition here as the May Reaper comes into play.
This is like the first thing that was suggested as an alternative to Goat, and Goat was shifted away from us. And this is aggressive. This is really aggressive. Starboy able to find Monk Mother, so this is already paying dividends for them. Look at the ult charge that is already on the board for these guys. I'll go halfway to 1. Gonna see Crocs take a dive, though. This is unfortunate.
Yeah, Crocs press shift and then missed the pin onto anything. I don't even think he was trying to pin anyone. I think he was trying to pin into a wall or something, but missed. So he fell off the map. That is very unfortunate. Your Reinhardt is a huge part of, obviously, protecting you as a team. And with Starboy going down, this is disastrous for Angry Titans.
This is so unfortunate because just as Crocs is getting back, Starboy's gonna go down. Starblaze is closing in on having this blade ready to go. Angry Titans, they've got to play back away from the point. They've got to get back into that full 6-person roster if they want to hold this.
That Doggo does have her Coalescence online here, so they will have an early fight where they have healing advantage. They need to go now.
Beautiful wall stops the line of retreat. Monk Butter Will's got a line of love, and Kasapa is able to find Doggo in the middle of the Coalescence. Gets Little Flame here as well. Now looking to chunk down the big health of Crocs. Will find it, and now Ultimate's in charge of the payload and rounded the corner.
There is one fight possibly available here, but there's nothing in the bank. And coming into this, you have to think that the Ultimates have all the cards in their hand. The Angry Titans need a miracle just to even touch the point. Never mind clean this fight.
All right, they've got that touch, they've got no ultimates, and they are closing in on the amplification matrix from Sir Madjet, who has the high ground. Crocs falling incredibly low, heavily pressured out. Love and Starboy taken down. The sound barrier out from Starboy was not going to be ready in time. And as the dash resets come through, as the blizzard fades, that is going to be it for Angry Titans. The Ultimates put on a clinic on Route 66.
All one-sided, and we are tied up 1-1 after 2. We're going to head to our third and final map, but Phil, we said at the top of the game that this should be a very close one, and it has delivered. We're going all the way through after this. And really, if map 1 was heavily sided by Angry Titans, then map 2 was all the Ultimates as they close out Route 66.
I kind of understand the logic of what Angry Titans were trying to do with this composition with the May and the Reaper. It's like, it's high damage, it's space control, it's aggression, it's ensuring you get at least a second fight, even if you lose that first fight. But they just didn't have the big burst ultimates, they didn't have the big burst abilities that you sometimes need to get through the health pools at the minute. You know, it's why we see dash reset being so important. It's why we see TNT being so important. So I almost feel like that was kind of a misplay from Angry Titans, just falling back on an outdated style of play.
I mean, credit to the Ultimates though in that fight. It was so the first fight was won so cleanly by Angry Titans, almost too cleanly actually, that the Ultimates just reset. They said, "All right, we're gonna walk back to spawn and wait. There's nothing you can do to kind of take us out in here, so you don't build any Ultimates." And Angry Titans were relying on that. You need the Blizzard, you need the Coalescence early, you need that first fight potential, and then you need to be able to stay alive most importantly. And none of that came through. So the Ultimates recognized the Angry Titans made what they were trying to accomplish, and just remove that win condition from them in its entirety. And I really like that read from the Ultimates, and that's why we're heading into beyond the full hold. The fact that they were able to suss out the composition that the Angry Titans were running and just shut it down so cleanly is very impressive.
Of course, and let's not dwell too hard and too long on Crocs and his mad dash over the side there. Probably didn't help Angry Titans on their defense. It will of course be a little bit harder to make that kind of mistake as we move over onto our next map. It will be a Control 2CP map, and it will be Temple of Anubis Lafon. Given what we've seen from these guys, is there any inclination as to who has the upper hand on this one?
I don't think there is an indication of the upper hand necessarily. I think it's going to depend on how Angry Titans reacts to high ground, which they didn't. They did well with in map number 1 and then forgot about in map number 2. So there's an element of, if they can make that high ground rotation, if they can make that rotation to first point, I think there is certainly room for them to kind of bring this back to themselves in this series. But at a certain point, there has to be an element of, okay, this is not working. This rotation that we're taking is too slow. It's not working. Try something else. And it just felt like Angry Titans did not do that in map number 2.
Okay, well, plenty of time now for the Angry Titans to make up for that less than stellar performance on the previous round as we move over into game, into Temple of Anubis. I'm just going to wait for these guys to get out of the spawn and see what we've got coming your way. And it looks like we're going to have a side swap here, and I believe the Ultimates coming out on defense first.
There's nothing confusing at all about a team named Ultimates when we're talking about Ultimate Economy, But
it's like the London Spitfire play called Although.
Man, I love those names. I love those names. There's a bunch of players that have some really pedestrian tags. Yeah.
Eileen's my favorite.
But to Temple of Anubis, it is going to be the ultimates on attack first. And hey, this is dive-ish. No, it is dive,
That's
actually.
incredibly dive, yeah. Oh. Well, TNT, everyone able to just about... Whoa!
No!
The Shocky Milk took a bit of damage there, halted in, and Love able to take it out. So that dive, kind of a belly flop more than a dive. Oh, Monk Mudder caught by Love as well. Jeez. Love has really got a read on these guys.
Yeah. That's going to stymie that an early push. And this is the May Ash. I mean, this is kind of expected on Temple of Anubis. The May can section off walls, section off parts of this map so heavily. And considering there's only one choke to walk through that splits up into two little areas, you can really force things into a difficult position. That dive shuttered entirely by one wall.
That was such a good wall, completely flattening Henningson's face on the dive. Will get back in. The Mortality Field now forced out for Angry Titan. And we've got to have to deal with that. And Chucky Milk gets the first pick. And with Little Flame gone, suddenly this space control ability of the Angry Titans is no longer on the table. If we can see the Automates get another pick here, this is going to be their fight. But Kassar Blaze gets caught out by Love, gets cornered with no abilities, and gets meleeed out of it. Monk Mudder still alive though, as we see the Automates start to wend their way towards the point. Looks like they might get a tick for free here. So Magic's going to go down, but honestly, what they've invested, this is not bad for the Ultimates, even if they lose this one.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to get that first tick off. To commit the Primal Rage, I think they might be switching here. Henningsen might actually end up switching to Orisa. I would not be surprised if that comes into play here. The dive was not, they did not get into a position that they needed to. No, he's going to stick with the Winston. I mean, the Primal Rage may come back to something they need as a long distance sustain. This is going to come down to, can you get the Nano Blade off? And it's going to come down to DPS execution. The dive is going to come down to DPS execution. Can you get the Nano Blade off? Can Monk Mudder get a good pulse bomb kill?
Well, we're going to see ults coming out already. Rally and and Amplification Matrix, and that's the quick double. Kassar Blaze and Samajed, they committed the ultimates, and the ultimates did not do them any good whatsoever. A complete shutdown onto that by the end.
I mean, that was the Nano Blade that was entirely ineffective. The Immortality Field and the Amplification Matrix dueling just to keep Crocs alive, such a the throughput, healing throughput there from Doggo, absolutely insane. And that was the major win condition that the Ultimates had. They needed that Nano Blade to get at least a kill to start snowballing things in their favor. Now they have to all in with the double bombs, but you're hoping that Monk Mudder can get a clear pick-off on, you know, maybe Doggo perhaps. Such an unlikely sequence of events.
Right, of course, always difficult to get too much around these shields when you've got the self-destruct in over the top. Lands wide, nothing out of that one.
Both bombs missed.
Magic once again. Kassar Blaze gets the trade out, but that is going to be it. And with the pop-up onto the high ground for the wall, there's the freeze onto Antigon, the rock, the D-Mech, and then the slow stagger kill. Kassar Blaze still here, but the Blizzard's going to come in. This looked like a one fight for the Angry Titans. I don't know that they needed that particularly. Henningsen will get the roll down onto Little Flame, but Angry Titans still in control.
No, they absolutely needed that. They absolutely needed that Blizzard. Kassar Blaze was actually about to take down Little Flame. So the fact that you make sure that, and on top of that, Doggo had also died. So that I think that commit from the Blizzard is 100% the right play. Monk Mudder going over to the Widowmaker. You're looking for hero plays now. 40 seconds remaining. The Gravitic Flux is still online. The only thing is, the Sound Barrier is available. The Gravitic Flux can be used to zone out if this fight gets too late.
Well, we've got to see something start this out.
Early
Sound barrier. It's going to be very aggressive. It will probably all have run out by the time this Flux comes through. Flux completes and Henningsen takes a huge amount of damage on the follow through and falls. Here's another blade from Kassar Blaze, but the Immortality Field stops that coming through. And with just 10 seconds left on the clock, and with the members of the Ultimates falling by the wayside, this is looking like a mostly point A hold for the Angry Titans.
There's only the Lucio to contest, and goodbye. Good night.
Tagged by Henningsen. Monk Mudder will get one. Kassar back onto the Tracer, but immediately met by Love. Henningsen down, and we might get the last contest here from Antigon, but that's it over. And now, Ultimates need a complete hold, a complete shutout on Anubis to take the series.
They do. That means that there, as you said, there is a win condition available, 1/3 of the points. It's not a lot, but it's something, right? And for Ultimates, that's what you have to hold your hat on. You have to go for the fuller hold and say that, you know, we full held on one map. Can we do it again on another? You never know. That may end up, that 35%, that 37.7% may be the difference maker that the Angry Titans are wishing they hadn't given up. But considering how dominant that shield hold was, you got to feel that the Angry Titans are feeling pretty good about themselves.
Just to talk about something maybe slightly meta-related for the minute, there's a lot of griping on Twitter and on Reddit about how strong Genji is at the minute. But you saw Kassar plays with the Blade, with the Nano Boost, just completely shut down by all of the CC and all of the space show that you can have a Genji on your team, but they've still got to work exceptionally hard to make Angry Titans have it work.
No mistake, Genji is a very strong character right now. No one's arguing that. The problem is, you can't send a Genji in alone. He's still a very squishy target. He is a burst assassin. You know, there's nothing about him that screams solo carry. You need your team to be alive to kind of get that value, especially when you're going to a double shield, right? You have to fight through the immortality field. You have to fight through the armor and the shield bash of the brig. Like the Genji still has a ton of value that needs to be gained from the rest of his team before he can do anything. So yes, the Genji is really strong, but your team needs to be there with you to help you out as well.
Going to see Love starting here on the Widowmaker, and given how hard he was making life in the early game for the Ultimates, this could be a devastating pick, but it's a slow roll approach point for now. Going to wait for the rest of the team to go through and then buy some sight lines for Love. Finds a dink there onto Antigun. Luckily, that dink back onto Love is right by Mega held back, so no harm, no foul just yet. But Angry Titans are already disputing this high ground position. See Little Flame come back, try and deal with Love. Back to point for now, and Ultimates are already back on point. This is not great. Love now wanting to go toe-to-toe once more with Kassar Plays. Once Kassar Plays is down, Love is going to have free reign here.
Kassar Plays has had to play this so carefully because he needs to stay alive. Starboy going to go down. This has been a bit of an odd split push by the Angry Titans. They're looking to take out the Genji, and Kassar Plays was playing more bait than anything else. Stays alive, so he buys time for his team to get back in a position. And I don't think necessarily Kassar Plays dying early is going to make much of a difference at all in this next fight. He's going to be back in time. So Angry Titans need to commit to a target. They need to commit to a fight, not take two separate ones.
In for a sight up, and Little Flame finds Sir Majid. Sir Majid was able to get that amplification matrix out, but with the sights up, nobody can really take advantage of that just yet. And now we've got the floats from Knassen looking for value, finds one, and Little Flame with a dash reset gets the double. It's going to be down to Kassar Plays with the Blade, and it's just too little, too late, as Starboy whips him out of it. Sir Majid tags back in with the Lucio, but that is it. A third and a bit, and the Angry Titans take the series 2-1.
That is back-to-back maps where the one team was firmly in control, and excellent hold there from Angry Titans on the defense, and then their offense was not shabby either. And you know, a good read from the Angry Titans to just buy time, get those pickoffs, and then have just the superior ults and just run them over. You know, you dump 6 ultimates in, and there's not much else you can do to kind of defend against it.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate that. I actually thought the way Kassar Plays was playing on that last round was like the distraction Genji in the back, stopping Love find any value was kind of a smart move. It's just a shame that he doesn't have the survivability he maybe thinks he does to keep himself permanently in that position, because it meant that his team was in a 5v6 because he was quite out of position. Yeah. A real shame, because I think the Ultimates, if they hadn't lost Kassar Plays just then, they may have been in a better place for that whole.
To be fair, we have to be clear that the map hinged on the defense, though, right? Like on Angry Titans' defense. That's where this kind of fell apart. If you get the double cap, you play a defense differently, right? You're like, all right, we can give up a little bit of space, we can give up a little bit of percentage, and then we can take fights in different manners. But with the fact that the Ultimates had to fight so close to the point, they only had a third of a point to give up. You have to be very careful with how you play the defense, and as a result, that they couldn't take nearly as aggressive a play as I think they would have liked, considering how they played the rest of the game. A very aggressive team, and I think that obviously is the difference in map gate is a huge reason why the Temple of Anubis went the way it did. So the full hold, it cannot be overstated how impactful that is in a defensive setup. You going into your defense, if you've completed a full hold, you play differently. You definitely play differently.
Yeah. You know that you've not got to do quite the amount of work that you maybe would have had to do with a less full hold. But as Angry Titans were the victors in that previous round, we've got an interview from the Angry Titans. That's going to be Knassen coming in to give us a chat about what went on in that previous map. So Knassen, welcome to the interview portion of the show. Congratulations. How are you feeling?
Thank you. It's feeling good. We're happy.
Glad to hear it. So, talk us through a little bit that last offense there, because that was over relatively quickly after what was quite a protracted hold on point B. What was going through your mind as you approached the end of this series?
After we held them on first point Anubis, we thought about like different compositions we could play to win, because we had a few setups, and I don't know, we just ended up mirroring them. It was just the easiest, I think.
Fair enough. I guess that contrasts very nicely with actually map number 2, where you guys, weren't able to make that first capture. Coming after that map, it's 1-to-1. What's kind of going through your mind? The last fight, it's pretty tough situation to be in. How does your team kind of rebound from that?
Yeah, en route we had some really unfortunate moments and we didn't play our best, but Anubis was a new map, so we just go again. And we play our setups and stuff.
Sounds good. Reset instead of regret. So
yeah, for sure.
What's next for you guys? Like obviously you're taking the victory here. It's a good place to be in, but for Angry Titans, how does the next step look?
We're just looking to roll through our opponents. We're just gonna play our best. We're gonna practice for the upcoming matches, and hopefully we just win all the other opponents.
Looking at who you got left to play in your group, who are you most worried about coming up against, if you are even worried about coming up against anybody?
I would probably say Roar would be hard, I think. But I think we can beat them.
Okay, great. I like the confidence. Right, Nelson, thank you very much for coming and joining us today. Congratulations again to yourself and the rest of the Titans. Please go and enjoy celebrating that win with the rest of your team. And we look forward to seeing what you and the rest of the team can do in the rest of Contenders trials.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
And from myself and from Lafon, I'm afraid that's all we've got time for on today's broadcast. Thank you very much for tuning in, and thank you, of course, to the teams for taking part and all the guys back at Reflash and Monkey Bubble for organising all of this. There is, of course, a lot more Overwatch coming your way over the next 2 days as we continue the coverage of the Contenders Trials EU period. Lafon, before we go, any last words?
I mean, stay tuned to the fantastic games that are coming up this week. Tier 2 needs your support, and there's been some fantastic Overwatch played and even more to come.
And good night, everybody. Thank you very much again for tuning in.